Today we're overviewing my second brain tool, which is a simplification of Tiago Forte's methodology for building a second brain that he mentions in his book. Now, before we dive into my particular model, we need to note the fact that mine is not a comprehensive second brain system, meaning that when you usually see people make videos about building second brains, they build their tools to be a comprehensive unit. It's a task manager, it's a calendar, it's a project manager, and it's an information system. My thought process is that you should treat Second Brain more as a methodological toolkit. It's a philosophy of organization that allows you to use a lot of different tools at your disposal and combo them up as a network so that way you can then make them play to their own strengths. So for example, I think that you should get the best task manager and calendar and whatever other tool you want, and you can simply put tasks in that task manager, put calendar events in that calendar system, and then ultimately if you have all of your other component tools put together, you're simply left with a place for information that you still need. You need a spot for notes and for resources and maybe tracking the major goals that you're working on throughout the year. And so that's what my Second Brain tool is built to do. It's built to be a simple spot to simply put information that you want on hand so that way you can actively recall it. And so we're going to look at this model that I've got, which is a template that's available for you to use for free. And in fact, if somehow you stumbled across this video because you are not a newsletter subscriber, then you can see that in the description. It's the newsletter that I originally built this video for. I talked about building a second brain and wanted to make a tutorial video so that way you get the full rundown on how to use my template and even how to customize it for yourself to use if you want to make some tweaks. So without further ado, let's get right into the tool. So here's the tool. Originally, when I built it, it was using Tiago Forte's PARA methodology: projects, areas, resources, and archive. But what I found as I was inputting information in my second brain was that I really just needed two things. I needed a spot to quickly add anything that I wanted to input into the second brain, and then I wanted a space to quickly sort through the things that are already within the second brain system. And so I've only got 2 pages that are really, that's the summary of what this tool is. There's a home page, which is a spot to quick add information and see at a dashboard glance the projects that you're working on. And then there is an areas and resources page that truly functions as, maybe we'll call it just like quick little widgets library to be able to sort through anything that you've input into the system. And so let's demo for you what it looks like to use this tool. So if I go back to the main page and I'm adding information, let's say that I'm taking a meeting notes archive during a meeting at work. I simply select new page, and then maybe I title it whatever it is. So maybe it's a work meeting and we'll do today's date, May 20th. And so then I'm gonna note that it's specifically a work thing. So I've already clicked on it. Now it says that there's one little relationship that has been selected, work. And then I can give it a tag if I want. You'll see that with information that I've already added in here for you to use is almost like just an example piece of info, so that way you can see how the tool works. I added the tag for health. In my personal second brain, I've got a lot of different health related notes, whether it's exercise, hydration, morning routines, all those sorts of things. But you can add however many tags you wish to be able to help with sorting the info. And then I can even associate this with a particular goal if I've got if this is a piece of information that I need to pull up when I sort through my goals. And then I've added a spot to designate this delineation of, is something a note or a resource? This is not something that's in the traditional second brain methodology. What I found was there, for my information, there was this idea of like, okay, I've got things that are notes, like meeting notes, or maybe even notes on a particular subject that I'm gonna keep editing. It's gonna be a living page that grows as I add extra information. And then there are things that are stable resources. Picture like lecture notes. You take lecture notes, they are what they are. They just simply stay the way they are. Or a infographic, a picture that you're gonna use as a reference and you add it into your second brain. So that's what these 2 delineators are for. They then will spit out into different sides of the database. You can choose to get rid of this delineation if you just want it to be simply one thing. But I found that my brain typically thinks in terms of, is this a note or is it a stable resource? Lastly is an indicator of where things are in the pipeline. Pipeline meaning, is this something that should stay in the inbox here on this page, or should it get sent into the areas page where it's then sorted in its corresponding area and tab? And really that brings me to the main point in this difference in methodology between me and Tiago Forte is that there's a space that I need to add info, and then maybe I'm constantly editing it. And then there's a spot that I need things to live. And quite honestly, it kind of auto archives itself, because the second page that we look at with areas, it's constantly showing me the things that are in use up at the top. And then as things drift to the bottom, they are less and less in use. And then eventually I could manually archive something if I wanted to. So going back to our example here, we're using meeting notes for work. I've now added this bit of information into my second brain. I don't need a tag for it. I've already designated that it's a work-related thing. And then this now is a page that I can add information to. So if I open it up, you get this little window pane and you can start typing whatever your notes are for this particular work meeting. And then after you've added it in, if you've never used Notion before, there's all sorts of great things you can use to sort. So you can give it titles and headers, and then you can even do little drop-down toggle lists. So you can start listing off different things that maybe need to get collapsed in this zone. You can even, of course, do bullet points. You can even do to-do checkboxes. There's a lot of different things you can do with Notion. And you should certainly see some tutorial videos on Notion if you need to get just a better glimpse of what the tool does on the whole. So if you've added everything in here, maybe you needed to leave this in your inbox, you're gonna come back and reference it immediately later that day. Maybe you don't think you're gonna need it immediately, but you think you need the information at some point because you took the notes. You can then send it through to areas. Now what happens is it will then spit out of the inbox. You won't see it here. You will instead see it on this second page that we've built. Now it's important to know, if you're not a native Notion user, what we're doing is we've built a database in Notion that is now, it's like one giant database, but based on how I've designed the tool to show that database on different pages, you're seeing different view settings that are auto filtering out what you want to see or what you don't want to see. So for example, the inbox is set to only show me things in the database that have inbox in the pipeline. There are multiple things that are in this database. You just don't see them. You only see the two that I have on here because they're set for inbox. The work notes that we just took, they're going to be in areas and resources. So now if I go into areas and resources, I have this quick little at a glance reference to show you the things that you've currently added to this zone. So there's one piece of info that I gave you just as a test sample, and then there's the work meeting notes that we just added to the system. So it shows up top. If it's a note, remember we designated this thing as a note, it shows up in this top database. If it's a stable resource, it's down here in the bottom database. And then the way that you can quickly find things is you can see them in their respective areas. So this was a work note. So obviously it's the first thing, it's the most recent thing that we added. So it's already here all right at the top. But if maybe it was down the list, maybe we added a bunch of things to our second brain that day, but you remembered that it was a work notes meeting thing that you need to go find, then you simply go to the work tab, and this page is filtering out all the things in the database except for things that are tagged with work. So since we selected work originally, and don't get confused, I didn't mean tag in this sense. We have a secondary tag essentially that we can give things, but what we initially related this piece of information to, it was specifically this column right here that said areas. We said it was a work thing, so now this page of the database is only showing us work-related things that we added in. Now, what's really cool with this is you can add things in the inbox, which is a great way to quickly capture information. Maybe you have further things you need to edit. But if you knew, like, hey, I know right now that I'm taking work meeting notes and I don't need them sorted out anywhere, I just want to keep them for later, then you could go into areas and resources, click on work, and start your next work meeting notes right here, and it will already have the notes delineator added to it because you input it in the notes section, and it already has the work area delineated because you already input it in the work screen. So there's certain areas that you can quickly navigate to if you want to quickly add information and keep it auto-sorted. The main point about the inbox is that it's a blank slate. When I input things here, it gives me no delineators other than the fact that it'll say that it is an inbox item. We'll even see that as a demo right here. Test. has nothing designated except inbox because I've added it in the inbox. And then as I add the different other delineators to organize it, it will then keep everything organized and make sure that it goes exactly where it needs to go. Now, if I go back to my next page, so areas and resources, you might say, cool, you gave me a bunch of these stock items, Zach. I need different ones. And I tried to make it simplified version of what I have in my second brain. But yeah, I could think like if you're a student, you probably want a school tab. Or maybe you even have particular classes that you want to have different tabs for so you can keep your information even more sorted. So let's just do a general school tab. Let's add one in. So these are our areas. When we think about information, we typically think about, well, what is it tied to? Is it a personal thing? Is it a work thing? Is it a fun thing? Is it a finance thing? Is it something I'm just doing for personal development? What is going on here? And so you can add a new page, and I've actually already created the templates in here so that way it'll automatically make things exactly the way you need them to be in order to work with the database. So new page, it already gives you all this info. It gives you the notes and resources database viewers, but I give you this little warning. Says that things are not filtered out because you're making a new one. So maybe we'll start from scratch here. What's the name of the area? We said that we're doing a school specific area, and then we're gonna give it a nice little school emoji. So that way we keep everything organized. If you've never used Notion before, you can actually add a little cover photo, change the cover, use Unsplash, type in school. What seems academic? Classic Apple with some books. Okay, so now that we've added this in, if we exited from here, you'll note that we now have our tab. We see school as the title of our area. We've got a little picture that keeps it all consistent with what we're viewing here with the rest of our database viewer. But remember, I didn't I didn't designate it to actually start sorting things out. So if I simply go here into filter, because I'm following these steps, click filter, scroll until you see areas, and then make sure that you give it the right area. Well, you just built it. This is what's called a relation property in Notion. So it knows how to autofill all these based on these different view pages that we've created. So we already have one set for us called school. So we just need to click on it, and then we can get rid of the filter. And now notice that it sorted out everything else because it said, okay, cool, there's nothing school related. So let's get rid of it. And we also have to do it down here. So filter, go to areas, click school, and now everything is good to go. So I can delete this because it's not nice seeing this because it kind of makes it all messy, but we don't need it anymore. We can clean it up. So now we actually see what we've got going on in our second brain. So we can start adding those pages. Maybe this is lecture notes, if I could spell lecture correctly. Lecture notes, maybe I want to give it a tag and give it a tag for a specific class. Like maybe this is chemistry. Cool. Create chemistry tag. So now I'm going to delineate my lecture notes that way, which honestly, if you're building a second brain page for school, I would recommend doing just a school tab and giving the tags, the individual tags, to delineate per class instead of trying to make an individual page for each different class or coursework that you have. That seems like it'd be too many layers for you to have to dig through. And then I can open this up and I can simply start adding whatever my lecture notes are specific to chemistry. So as you can see, it's easy to add things to our second brain to continue the organizational methodology. We can add extra pages. This gives us the ability to add things into our second brain and keep things auto-sorted exactly where they need to be. And really, that's kind of the whole thing. This is how the second brain system works. It's a spot to add info, and it's a spot to also then sort through the information that you already have. If you find that you're like, I really don't need this anymore, I don't even want to see it in my second brain, but you think maybe just someday I may want to look at this information, you could simply just let it float to the bottom, because these database pages, or the viewers, they're sorted based off of what is actively being pulled up versus what has kind of floated to the background. But if you want to archive something manually, you can. I hit that little drop down, have an archive button, and notice that it got removed from the second brain. It still technically is here. So if I go back to my directory, I can click archive and see those lecture notes once everything loads and it pulls up for us. It's taking a little bit of time right now, but you can actually see everything that you've made in the archive. in case you need to pull it up for later use. But for the most part, I tend to not archive things a whole lot. I simply leave them in my second brain system and let them float to the backdrop or background of the tool as I don't need it. In fact, let's try to pull it up one more time. Looks like it's still, I duplicated this template, so it's maybe taken a little bit of time to save and load over all the different pages that I had. So we'll skip that for now. So just to prove that there indeed is an archive, everything finally auto-loaded in. I can click on archive and you can see those lecture notes that we formerly archived in our second brain system. So this will now no longer pop up in areas and resources. We already moved it out of the inbox of our pipeline. It's now stored in archive because we selected that little checkbox. If I needed this out of my archive, I could uncheck it and now it's gone. See, it disappeared from over here. But you can select it, move it down here, and the archive is a good spot to keep things that you say, you know what, I really don't need that cluttering my view as I search through things in my second brain system. I really don't need that, but I might need it for later. So I can't think of any examples off the top of my head, but I know that I've done certain projects for work where I'm like, I'm pretty sure I don't need that information anymore, but I still have kept it in archive because it could be that I pull a data point from it in a future use case. The last thing to show with this is we didn't even go over our goals and projects. So I tend to associate projects and goals together. I typically, when I look at my second brain, I'm thinking through what personal projects have I dedicated my time to for the year. And I have created 2 samples that are here for you. Now, there is a template. So if I click new page, just like with my areas and resources area, that's right here, when I clicked the new one to add school, we were just able to add it in. The same goes for this main homepage for adding new goals. So in fact, let's do that right now. Let's add a new page here. It's gonna load everything in. It's gonna ask us to make sure that we sort our database accordingly. So maybe, you downloaded my template, and so your goal is that you now need to finalize your second brain system. And so what you're doing is the vision of your goal is transform this template into my perfect second brain. And then for each database viewer, you need to make sure that you do the same thing that we did in the previous section with areas. So I go filter, click on what goal this is. It's the one that we just built, finalize second brain system. In fact, we forgot to give this a handy emoji. So let's go back up to the top icon, good old brain icon. And then same goes down for here. So we've got task milestones, which I'll go into in a second. And then we have our same database viewer that we had from the previous instances when we looked at our lecture notes and everything that we built. So let's go filter. What is the associated goal or project? Finalize second brain. Down here for resources, and then we're going to do the same thing. Goals, projects, finalize second brain. Notice once again, everything's blank now because we don't have any notes or resources that we added in that were tied to this. Okay, tasks and milestones. I mentioned in my intro that for task management, I use a different tool. But I think that when it comes to wanting to see progress in a specific project or goal, it's good to track maybe specific tasks or milestones within your second brain. And so that's what this database is for. We can simply add new things. So maybe in order to do this goal of building your second brain is you need to review this video. Review Zach's tutorial. And then the next thing that you're gonna do is you're going to edit the areas page. And then after that, the next thing that you're gonna do is create helpful tags. And then we'll probably just keep it there. So we've added those tasks or milestones, and they've automatically sorted them in accordance with the filters that we put on. In fact, we can remove this because we now took care of this step. So this is now ready to go. We now have our project, Finalize Second Brain. It now has created a progress bar that is tied to the milestones and tasks that we've added in this little sub database. And we have this cool little blurb. What are we trying to do? And so if we actually exit out of the screen, you now see Finalize Second Brain with this little view that's showing you kind of inside that page, that database entry, and it's showing you a snapshot of like what's your main goal and focus for your project. And it's just a good way to be reminded, like what's the main thing that you're trying to do here. And then it shows your progress bar. Now, you don't have to go inside this and start clicking on these to turn each milestone off or to complete it. You can actually go down here and you'll see everything sorted based on when you recently added it. So of course, our top 3 tasks are the things that we just added because it's looking at most recent in descending order. So notice what happens here when maybe you're done watching this video and you click Review Zach's tutorial. It deleted it from down here. It's now in the completed section, and it now shows that you are a third complete with this particular goal. Of course, if I check off all of them, you now are at 100%, or if I add a new thing, so let's do test, what goal is this for, finalize second brain system, we now have 75% because we had 3, completed all of them, we added a 4th, and we've only had 3 out of the 4 complete. So it's in real time editing this completion meter based on all the things that you have added in. Now, just like with the areas tab, I had things already populated in here, just that way you can see the tool at a glance. So these 2 goals that you have here, goal title number 1, goal title number 2, and then the different tasks, they're examples, right? If I start selecting them, you can see that we now are completing what is in that goal or project. These are here just for your ability to see how the tool works. So you could actually just simply swap out the information on here, right? It's like you can give this, your next goal is be awesome. And now it will simply show it on here, and then you can see it show up as the related property for the different tasks and milestones. But the easiest option though is probably that you just delete these. So you simply delete that one, and then now you have your blank slate. You only have it looks like it kept the example tasks that are down here because it's like an independent database. These things talk with one another, but they're 2 separate things. So if you just simply needed to get rid of these example tasks that weren't tied to a particular project, you just trash can them, and now you're good to go. You can start creating new goals, goal title test, and it now is ready for you to add specific items to, and there it is right there. So we created that new page. This is now good to go, and you are off to the races, being able to add everything that you need. Okay, so in summary, what this tool is meant to do is it is a spot to quickly add information into your second brain, and a spot to be able to see at a glance at it as a dashboard how you're doing in the major projects and goals that you're trying to accomplish, and then how to quickly sort and view the things that you've input into your second brain system. These are all, think of it as almost just like a user interface to interact with the info. Quite honestly, the way that I tend to use my second brain, I'm either adding it in this top section right here, or if I knew that I needed to find a particular thing, I'm using this search bar in order to just find everything that I need in my second brain. You'll find that this is really easy to sort through and use, and it's totally customizable. That's the beauty of Notion. So if you want to tweak this template and make it your own, you totally can. It's available for you for free. I've put everything in the description below. Obviously, if you're watching this because you are already signed on to my newsletter, then you have the tool in the newsletter itself. Hopefully this tutorial video helps you with being able to build out your own second brain system and you use it yourself so that way you don't lose track of anything.